No,
You're,
I'm
you're
home.
home?
I'm home.
Where are you?
I'm home.
You're home. Okay. That's in.
You? Okay, we're recording. Go ahead.
Welcome everyone to our. Oh, welcome everyone to our class in Sefer Higayon. Bezrat Hashem will be finishing the Sefer today. The outlook here of the Ramchal is, as he said in his introduction, he would like to perfect his thinking process. And in order to do that, he had to investigate what thinking is about. And he has described to us this very, very fascinating system where we're going to create and analyze concepts, and then we'll put them together in a Shulchan Aruch or Mishnah Torah. The basis, if I had to say it in shorthand, of the Ramchal is statement and proof. That's what he's really, really into, because he wants to prove things are true. He just doesn't want to accept them as true. He wants to prove things because, as he mentioned, people believe a lot of things. Some of them are true, some are not. And it would be nice to have some sort of way that we can determine that what we're actually thinking has a grain of truth in it, if not more. So his basic system here is to take these 21 concepts and to apply it to things that we're reading and do an analysis of statements and show why those statements are true, or to actually create things, to think about subjects, and to try to use these 21 terms to have us ask the right questions to make sure that we're covering the topic that we're supposed to be investigating. So he's made this toolkit, and we're learning about it. We're at the end now where he's demonstrating the two processes that he uses with these 21 terms, the Hamsa'ah and the Havchana. So we've done the Hamsa'ah. Now we're in the middle of the 21, where he's going to show us how to do the analysis, the Havchana. And last week we left off here. Oops, okay. We did Sug, and he took a statement that Biko Cholim, who Miklal Gemilas Chasadim, he's trying to teach us about categories. And so here we have a statement that Biko Cholim is in the category of Gemilas Chasadim, and his system, of course, is to say, well, what are we talking about? So the subject here is Biko Cholim, and we're looking at it in the aspect of its sug. So we say that that's what the statement is talking about. It's talking about Biko Cholim is a type of Gemilas Chasadim. Now, in the Havchana Gezeres, what's the difference? Now we won't. That was just a statement that Biko Cholim is Miklal Gemilas Chasadim. But he says this second type of communication that we're interested in is not only statements but proofs of statements. So we have to be clear about what statement is being made, what's the subject, what's the predicate, and what is the proof. So he gives us an example here. The statement says it's Rui levaker es hacholim lefi shezeh miklal gemilas chasadim. We want to prove that it's proper to visit the sick because it's in the general, it's one of the types of the general category of Gemilas Chasadim, doing chesed. So we break it down. The inyan is Rui levaker cholim. What we want to state is that it's fitting to visit a sick person, and now we have to bring a raya, and that's what we analyze the statement the same as bringing a raya, mikor hasug. And And then we make the hekesh that we mentioned above, which was here. Kol shehu miklal gemilas chasadim roi lasoso, biko cholim miklal gemilas chasadim imkein roi lasoso. So we proved it by saying that bikor cholim is part of a greater category. Now I'm going to have to prove that gemilas chasadim is roi lasos, okay? But that will be the next level, as he explained to us in Tfunos. Okay, but at least what he tried to do here was bring a proof by looking for the sug. What can we say that's true about the sug? And if we can say it's true about the sug, then we'll be able to say it's true about the min also. Okay, so that's his havchana be'inyanim and havchana of gezeros. Now let's look at the min. He says like this. We have a statement, Balechem Nayim Midaber Ubilti Midaber. The category of animals, has two parts, the speakers and the non-speakers. That's what the statement says. So what is the subject here? Well, it's animals. And what aspect are we looking at when we're speaking about the animals? The subject. How are we trying to do this? What are we trying to discern in that subject? Well, we're trying to discern its types. So we say there's two broad types, the speakers and the non-speakers. And that's our analysis of the statement, and that's what he wants us to do. So when you hear a statement, you have to say, what is it talking about? And which aspect of the statement is it speaking about? And then you clearly understand what the form of the statement is. But, as we said, that's the first part. Now you want to know if the statement is true or not. Now you know what we're talking about, what aspect we're dealing with. Now we want to know, is the statement true or not? So here's another statement. Afal pi, and we're going to use the min to do this. Afal pi shechelek hasafon kar yesh bo bal chayim. We want, the statement says, even though the north is cold, quite rainy too sometimes, it still has, animals still live there. So this gray I always fill in. The first thing is the inyan. The inyan is that the tzafon yesh lo bal chaim afal pi shu kar. That's what we want to say. You would, remember this is l'chara macheshes, you would think that cold is a reason not to have animals, but the statement says no. Even though in the northern climes it's cold, animals still can live there. Now we want to prove it. So how do we prove it? Well, we prove it by not looking at the sug of Balei Chaim, but looking at its minim. And we say like this. We're going to prove it al yedei minim. Dahainu, hashualim, zevim. We're going to look at certain types of Balei Chaim, foxes and wolves. And we'll make the following hekesh. Makom sheyesham ze'evim v'shualim, which is two types of animals, yesham balei chaim. So since those are the minim, so we have to say the klal is there also. The tzafon yeshbo ze'evim v'shualim. The northern climes has wolves and foxes. Therefore, they have balei chaim. So we wanted to prove that animals exist there. How do we do it? We found some minim of animals that exist there, and then we put the wolf and the fox, and then we said, okay, so therefore animals have to live there. Maybe not all animals, but some animals. Okay, so that's how we tried to prove this statement that Balei Chaim live in the north, even though it's cold, because we found some types of animals that do live there. Okay, now we'll move on to the Gezerah and the Nigzar. Okay, this is etymological roots. We were just learning chulin, and we wanted, the Gemara asked, why is the lung called the rhea? The rhea, I'm sorry. Why is it called the rhea? It comes from the word to see. What does breathing have to do with sight? The Gemara is interested in that problem. So you see, so the etymological root of the word lung should have something to do with its function. I mean, Avram Rishon gave these words to capture the essence of things, like Kelev is a kol lev, it's a devoted animal. So the Gemara wants to know about the rhea. What it came up with was that lung is good for the sight. Eating lungs is good for the sight. So you can make a lot of money now by opening up a lung restaurant. But then the other thing, it said it's really worked with spices, so you have to know those special spices and to improve people's eyesight. But anyway, that's a question of etymology. So here, he's going to do some havchana. Okay. Havchana b'inyanim. Adam nigzar me'adama. The man, oops, what was that? I don't know why my things start shaking a little. Man was let's say its root is Adama. That's its root word. The word Adam comes from the word Adama. Okay, so in Hebrew the word man comes from the word earth. So what are we talking about in this statement? Adam nigzar me'adama. We're talking about man, and we're looking at it at its etymological root, its gezerah, which is the word Adama. So that's what the statement says. Now we're going to do Havchanos HaGezeros. We're going to do an analysis of a statement that has a proof. Ha'adam ein rui lo hizgaos shahare al shem adama nikra. Well, that's interesting. A man shouldn't have gaiva because he comes from the ground. You see, so we're going to bring a proof. This statement brings a proof that a man shouldn't have gaiva because of his etymological root. Inyan she'ein rui la'adam hizgaos. The subject matter we're talking about is that it's not fitting for man to be proud. And we're going to prove it from its etymological root because the etymological root of man comes from the earth. And that's the hekesh that we said above. Anything that's related to the earth shouldn't be proud. Man is related to the earth, and therefore he should not have gaiva. Very interesting. Why do so many people have gaiva if they're coming from the earth? Well, I don't think about it this way. Okay, but that's it. So we analyze the statement, and we see that the statement is talking about the aspect of etymology. Okay, in Hebrew, since it's a very pure language, it's Lashon HaKodesh, so you can learn a lot from the root meanings of the word. As we mentioned, that Rishon was the first one to talk and to give good things. So Hebrew works nicely. English, it also can work, but you have to know a little bit of German, French, Latin before you can understand how these words came to be what they are. Okay, now let's go to analysis using conjugates. Conjugates are a little different than etymology. They're various forms, grammatical forms of a root word, and as we said, in Hebrew, it works out very nicely. So let's take a sentence. Hagever tzarech yizgaber. A man should use his strength. Okay, Ezu Gibor, Hakave Kovashes Yitzro. I guess he should use his strength to actually control himself. But this statement says the Gever Tzarech Yizgaber. A man should use his strength. Inyan. So what are we talking about? Man, again, man. Here it's not Adama. Here it's a different word for man called Gever. And the Havchana here is the binyan Tzarech Yizgaber. The word man comes from the word gavar, to overcome. So this statement tells us that a man should overcome because his name is called one who overcomes. I guess a gaveret also should overcome. But that's a quality of man. He has to always kovesh. He always has to conquer. But we're supposed to conquer, not the European nation, but he's supposed to conquer his Yetzer. That's the big chiddush of the Torah. Okay. Havchana HaGezeros. Now we're going to break down the statement that has a proof with it. Remember we said mipnei or mishum is always, anytime we see a statement like that, we're going to see that the proof is embedded in the statement. And if we see a statement without a proof, then we always ask Manoan, how do we know that it's true? But here's a statement that's already prepared for us, and we're going to look at it at its conjugate aspect. Ha'adam tzarich shizgaber b'ma'asav shahari nikra gever. A man should control his actions because he's called a person who can be strong and control himself. What's the inyan? Sha'adam tzarich shizgaber, and the amitos mikoach habinyan. We're bringing a raya because of the binyan of where it comes from, shahari nikra b'shem gever, because he's called from that root of gevurah, gevur, strength. V'zeh hakesh and iskal ayil, which we just mentioned, which was misha nikra gever, tzar shizgaber, adam nikra gever, imkain tzar shizgaber. Okay, well, now we're up to definitions. The definitions and those things which are defined by the definitions. Let's see his example here. Okay. The statement says, Ha'adam hu bal chai medaber. That's the classic definition of Adam. A man is an animal that speaks. So we break it down, we analyze it. What is the statement talking about? It's talking about man, and what it's trying to do is give a definition of man. And he defines him according to his sug and his heftel, which is a bal chai medaber. He's in the general category of animals, but he's different than all the other types in that category because he has the ability to speak. Good. Okay. So that was the getter of man, the definition. Let's see getter, an example of an analysis of a statement that has a getter and a proof. So he says like this. Biyom tov ein ra'ui litroach. On Yom Tov, a person shouldn't exert himself. And here's the proof. Lefi she'u yom shvisa, because it's a day of rest. So we break it down, analyze what this statement is saying. It's talking about a person shouldn't exert himself on Yom Tov, she'en litroach b'Yom Tov, and it's bringing a proof, mikoach gidro. It's bringing a proof by the definition of Yom Tov, which is a Yom Shvisa. If you want to define Yom Tov, it's a day of rest. Since it's a day of rest, one shouldn't exert oneself. Here's the proof. Yom Shvisa and Shorach Bo, a day of rest, one is not supposed to exert himself, and since Yom Tov is a day of rest, he shouldn't exert himself. Okay, so that was definitions. Moving right along, we're going to do division. Okay, let's see how he uses division to analyze. So we have here a statement that says Torah nischalakis le Torah shebapeh v'Torah shebechsav. Torah shebechsav, Torah shebechsav, I should have said. That's the two parts. That's what we gave like in the example when he tried to create a compound statement. No, here's a statement. Should we talk about that? Okay, let's try to analyze the statement that the Torah is divided into the oral and the written and oral law. So the subject here is Torah, and we're having aspects of its halakim, of its parts. Its parts are Torah shebapeh and Torah shebechsav. Okay, those are its parts. Now we have a statement, and we're going to analyze it. Ha'esev morkav, shahari yeshbo mitzim, a few other things it has there, kalim, and what else did it have? These beautiful grasses. Yeah. And as mitzim, kelim, and revachim, spaces. Okay, so let's analyze that statement that grass is a compound element since it's made of these juices, parts, and spaces, vessels. So this statement, when we analyze it, is talking about the composition of of grasses, and it's bringing a proof that the Esav, that grasses are a compound because we see that it's made up of parts. And then here's the proof. We say anything that has these various juices and parts and vessels is considered a compound, and since Esav has these parts, it's considered a compound. Okay, look to the narachim, things which are similar, comparables. Now remember, we had a whole big discussion here of narachim. He's only giving one example of it, but we're just going over the idea to solidify the concept in our head. So we're going to do an analysis of a statement that says das ka'or lenefesh. There's a comparison, a dimyon. Knowledge is like the light of the soul. So we're talking about knowledge, and what are we doing? We're looking at what it's comparable to, and it's comparable to light. So knowledge is comparable, is the light of the soul. Now we have a statement that brings a statement and proof. Remember, we said that's the whole idea here, either to create statements and proofs or to analyze statements and proofs, because we want to know if things are true, and we can only do that it's based on their proof. So here's a statement that says, it's impossible to count the seed of Yaakov because they're comparable to the stars. So what is the subject matter here? The Inyan Sheyev Shalom Nozer Yaakov, that Jews are uncountable, and we prove it because of a dimion that they have. They're domet to the stars. Hashem compared us to stars. So just like you can't count stars, you cannot count the Jewish people. And we say, Shehem Chochei HaShamayim, a nation that is as numerous as the stars, it's impossible to count. And since the Zer Yaakov, which is what we want to talk about, is like the Kochei Shemayim, they're compared to Kochei Shemayim, so then it's impossible to count them. Now we're going to talk a lot more about this aspect of Dimyon. We'll talk about Sefer Melitza. It's going to be explained in great detail. But here we're just doing the headlines. What about things which are not equal, or Harashok or Harabor? We want to now talk about shadows and physical bodies. So you can't grab a shadow like a physical body. So we're going to talk about shadows. That's the Inyan, and we're going to look at it because of what we're going to compare this to something that's not like it. Okay? What's not like a shadow? A physical body. So that's what this is saying. You can't grab a shadow like a physical body. We're showing that they're disparate. The shadow is not like a physical body because the shadow can't be grabbed and a physical body can. Okay, let's try to do an analysis of the statement and a proof, which says Hatzel Eino Mamashi, Shahari Eino Nitpas Kaguf. We're using Bilti Shavim. We're trying to say that a shadow is not physical because it can't be grabbed as the body is grabbed. So we're talking, the statement we made is shadow is not something that's physical, and we want to prove it because of what it's not like. It doesn't have the qualities of goof. So since it doesn't have the qualities of goof, we say Mashuhu Mamashi Nitpas Kaguf. Anything that is physical can be grabbed like a body, and since the sail is not like goof, it can't be tzelin paskukuf, so then it can't be physical. All right, let's look at the hefech example here, the opposites. We've got similar, different, and opposites. Let's do the opposite one. Okay. He says, guf avir lo guf. It's an interesting idea. How would you say it? The substance of air is not physical. So we're talking about the substance of air, and we are going to look at it in the aspect of what it's
What it's not.
what its opposite is.
What it's opposite. Okay,
Is
right.
opposite, not nivdal, but opposite. So the opposite of, that's what he says, the opposite of air is something that's physical. So he says the goof avir lo goof. We're talking about the object of air, and we're going to say what's its object, its opposite. The opposite of air is a physical body. So the goof avir lo goof. It's the same thing, but the object of air is not physical. Okay, well, not going to say that may be true, that may not be true. We have different ideas now in the world of atoms and all sorts of gases and things, but whatever it is, that's what he says. Havchanas hagezeros. So what happens if we said ha'ayin eino davar lefi she'ein eino b'metzius? Wow, this is very philosophical. Nothingness is not anything because it doesn't have any reality. You get that?
Nothingness, ha'ayin, ein a davar. So this is also, what, this is also with opposites? So you're saying that ayin is ein a davar? Ayin is the opposite of ein a davar?
That's right. Yep. He says, the statement is saying that nothing is not physical. Nothingness is not physical. I want to prove it because of its opposites, and we make a hekesh. Mishu ez zedava yeshno mitzius. Something that is physical has a reality, and since nothingness doesn't have any reality, so then it's not physical. Now, I'm sure that means something philosophically, but it sort of escapes me, but maybe you got it. But that's what he says. It's
No, we got it.
of nothingness.
I always had a problem with negatives. Negative numbers, especially, you know, when you're adding negative numbers, multiplying negative numbers, you know, you got to...
Two negatives make a plus. How does that work? Okay. But with this, though, it was all right. But now we're talking about nothingness as an item. But I guess you could talk about nothingness because it's the opposite of somethingness. But okay. Now we'll talk about things that are not related. Nivdalim. So we want to do an analysis. And we have haruach eino mayim. These two things are nivdal. And the wind is not the rain. So we're talking about the wind, and we're looking at its nivdal. What's different in the wind? Okay, but it's different in the sense that it's not its opposite, but it's apples and oranges. It's a different item. Okay, so we said the wind is not the rain, and we talk about the subject of wind. We're saying it's nivdal, it's different than, or not related to the water. Now let's have a statement. Lepera lo yulama das lefi she'eno adam. Very interesting idea. How would you translate a para? A wild man can't learn because he's not a man. It's called a para adam, but he's a wild man. A wild man can't learn. So we're trying to say that a wild man can't learn, and we're bringing the truth to it because he's nivdal, the pair is nivdal, he's different than a man. And since only a man can learn, and he's not a man, he can't learn. So that's it. Tam v'nishlam, shevach lekel borei leolam. We did it. That's the first time through.
Right.
That was a quite long experience. Okay. I'm going to get back to it. We're not going to leave it. We're going to get back to it when we do. This is our first time through. We said in Dr. Gemara, this is a concept called Roa. We have to see the general concept, and especially in this book where it's so hard to understand the system, and you've seen all the parts.
Right.
So he's really demonstrated the whole system. He told us what to do. Now our job is to do it. Now a lot of this has to do with classification and thinking about items. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the third part of the third wonderful sefer that he wrote, which is Sefer Melitza. We're going to start that next week. We're not going to start this week. But there he's going to teach us. This book was all about communication.
Which one? This one is all about,
This book. This book is all about communication. No matter, but Melitza is about motivation. Okay? In other words, you can say the truth, but how do you make it penetrate into someone's heart? Okay? We all know what we should be doing, but how come we're not doing? How come we're not doing all that we should be doing?
Right.
Okay? So he writes this book called Sefer Melitza, in which he tells us the keys to transmitting information into the heart. And it's a very, very exciting. This is the last part of this trilogy here. And what he does is he goes through Tanakh, and he shows us because what did the Navi try to do? The Navi tried to move the people. Again, everybody. I mean, the Torah is sitting there. We know all the things we're supposed to be doing, but we have to be motivated. We have to be moved. We have to have Hisaurus do what we're supposed to be doing. So he goes through the Tanakh, and the Nevi'im were masters of motivation. That was their whole job. They didn't come to Mechadesh any dinim. They just came to get the people doing what they're supposed to be doing, whether it was correct. So he goes to the Tanakh and he shows us, and he breaks down exactly in his system here how to use language as a motivating force. Okay? And once we have all this material here, and we can apply it and think about it, we can then start using it as a tool. Okay? So next week, Bezrat Hashem, where we're going to go to Sefer Melitza.
Very good.
Okay. All right. That was some accomplishment.
It is, except that it's it's a lot of information and a lot of practice, really.
Exactly. And we're going to have to come back to it. We're going to have to. Okay, Beseda. Let's stop here and pick up our second discussion. We're also coming to the close there to the end.